Thank you all so much for being here today. I'm excited to share this workshop with you. My name is Shoulak, and this is my presentation called The Recovering Artist. On each of your chairs, you'll see a little card for Sober Betties. It's a local community that we're starting here in Orlando, but we're not locked into Orlando. We have people who join that Facebook group from all over the world, so go ahead and join our Facebook group there. And I have some slides here, but it's a little bit small. You guys are kind of spread out. If you want to use your phones right now and scan this QR code, you can actually follow along with the slides with me. Okay? There will also be some opportunities for you to write down some notes as we go. So if you want, you can use the notes app on your phone. If you want some physical paper, I've got some cards for you here in the handout. Obviously, sobriety is a tricky subject. It's one that people don't often like to talk about or hear about. But I wanted to share a little bit with you, and hopefully some of these goals align with some of your goals. So our goals that we're going to share today here at the Spiral Circle Bookstore, we're going to help you gain confidence as a creative professional, ask for what you need, and produce more of what makes your soul sing. So you all probably have very different backgrounds. Maybe some of you are ceramic artists, maybe some of you are painters, theater performers, musicians, whatever you consider to be your craft or your work. Even if you're here as more of a professional than as a creative and you really like administrative tasks, whatever makes your soul sing, we're going to help you make more of it. So there's a couple points that I want to break down and help us get to these points that we're talking about. The first one will obviously be sharing a little bit about myself so you can understand who I am and why I'm talking to you today, my artistic and recovery journey, as well as some common pitfalls artists tend to face. No judgment here, but it might sound pretty familiar. And then I'll give you some tools to apply this in your own life. So rather than just bombarding you with information and sending you on your way, I'm going to make it really easy for you to reinforce these habits in your own lives. So, like I said, my name is Shoulak. In the artist community here in Orlando, I'm known as KALUOHS. There's no wrong way to pronounce it. It's actually my last name spelled backwards, if you notice. Some people don't know that, but I was a college professor, and I never wanted my students to stumble upon my art. So, just like many people, when you're asked how and why you're an artist or how long you've been an artist, my answer is generally that I've always been an artist and I've always been a creative person. When I had grown up, I was born in Ohio, raised in Minnesota, and went out to college in Colorado. And by the time I made it to Miami for graduate school, I was getting a little bit more serious about my art. So with that, I was showing in galleries, I was a little bit more advanced in my art, but I was also getting deeper and deeper into substance abuse. And Miami, unfortunately, is kind of a perfect city for that, for you to kind of get caught up in all of that. So what I noticed through some soul searching and reflecting on my relationship with these substances is that I saw alcohol as my gateway drug. Obviously, people talk a lot about marijuana and how marijuana is a gateway drug, but for me, it was that liquid courage, that social lubricant that really made me do things and be in situations that I wouldn't have been in sound peace of mind, right? Now, I stand before you, 6 years sober. It'll be 7 years in December, one day at a time. But after those 6 years of sobriety, I've really learned a lot of things, and I see myself as a different person now than I was as an artist in Miami. So now in sobriety, I do have that improved clarity, for better or worse, right? When your glasses are clean, you can see more, but then there's more dangers ahead and that kind of metaphor. But I also have been trying to work on replacing some of those coping mechanisms, because the whole purpose of this workshop to talk about it is, as artists, sometimes we like some of those mood-altering substances to be able to feel a little bit more creative. But if you are somebody like me who has issues with substance abuse and has maybe that addictive personality that goes a little bit too far, there's a fine line between when a muse can inspire you and when it can cloud your judgment and kind of get in your way. Wanted to notice when I would feel either triggered or have a craving or an itch for a substance that I would usually use, and trying to reinforce those with healthy coping mechanisms, whether that's physical activity, working out, watching a movie, breathing exercises. You can get really creative with that. And lastly, another thing I feel like I've gained through that sobriety is healing from the ground up. You start at the root. So rather than this very prescriptive life and society that we have right now that wants to just take a pill or get a shot and have everything poof, go away, get better, I really have been invested in my own development and healing myself from the ground up, clearing out those chakras, getting in touch mind, body, spirit, and really redefining who I am as an artist going forward. Overall, the highlights of that sobriety journey, I was exposed to drugs and alcohol lifestyles really early. It was reinforced by loved ones, and my drinking increased, led to illicit drug use. When I decided it was time to stop digging that hole was 12/13/2017, and I did start with AA, but when we talk about those coping mechanisms and how they were used, AA has a very hard and fast rule about being what we call Cali sober. I do have my medicinal marijuana card, and that is exactly why we have these conversations where we talk about intentional consumption and accountability, honestly, is knowing how, when, and how you're using it and in which ways. But that's not limited to my experience and what I've been through. You are all artists in your own way and in your own fields. So these are common pitfalls that I've just noticed in the art community that people will face. First one might sound pretty familiar to most of you, right? The imposter syndrome, saying I'm not an artist. My boyfriend does this often, where he will do really creative things, like design pins and postcards and do graphics for people, but he'll still be hesitant to say I'm an artist. The second one being self-doubt, where you do maybe produce something and then you look back at it and say, I'm a terrible artist, my work is so bad, it'll never compare, and that comparison is really the thief of joy. That third bullet point of people pleasing and saying, I'm going to make art that they want. Sometimes in the music industry, you might hear this as selling out or doing things that are very commercialized, and that goes back to not only accountability, but authenticity. And saying, is this what makes my soul sing, right? In the beginning, we were talking about those goals and how you will be able to do this and produce more of the work that makes you happy. The fourth one that you'll see there, that silent treatment, where you never share anything out of a fear of rejection, that might be making a lot of art behind closed doors and either throwing it away, squirreling it away, hiding it away, and never showing the world or getting critiques because you're so afraid of judgment. But other people might be lifting you up, so you're kind of missing out on some of those opportunities. The one that you'll see at the bottom that's highlighted in fuchsia is actually mistaking your crutch for your muse. So when you are on a journey of moderation or learning about sobriety and what that means to you, you might call it your crutch because it's what you lean on when those times get hard. You think about it at the end of the day when somebody's like, I gotta get home, can't wait to have a drink, I'm so tired, and that's a crutch in a way. In contrast, to use something as your muse and let it inspire you and let it amplify the creativity that you have in your life is a positive use, right? But sometimes we confuse that and we say as an artist, I remember when I was in Miami and I was producing high levels and putting that art in galleries, it would not be uncommon for me to go through a bottle of wine in the evening. And you think that because you keep imbibing in that crutch, that it became your muse. But that's where we talk about intentional consumption. So I gave you those papers, you could use your notes app. I'm gonna ask you just a quick question, give you some time to think about it. And I just want you all to reflect. So imagine that you're about to get creative, you're about to get into that flow state. Maybe you're gonna throw clay on a wheel or knock out a banging social media content calendar. How do you prepare? Do you prepare your space in a certain way? Do you get all your materials out? Is there a certain incense you like to light or a candle you like to have going or music, a playlist that gets you in the mood? Paint a picture for yourself and just jot down some notes that come to mind about how you prepare your creative space. If you're having some trouble with the prompts or to put yourself in that mindset, you can look at the bullet points here where you can ask yourself, do you need to drink to get your creative juices flowing? Do you need to smoke or get high to feel like an artist? Or, looking at it the other way, Does the idea of the absence of these substances bring you anxiety? Does it make you all prickly to think about not having a drink after work? And lastly, if you are starting to bring up these details that make you think you might be having a problem with a substance or using it in an inauthentic way, you can ask yourself, what could serve as a similar ritual to get you in that headspace, right? So instead of smoking a joint to get in the headspace, maybe you light a candle and that essence of burning and having smoke around you is replaced. Or maybe there's something else that you can do if it's an oral fixation that you like, doing like chewing on a pen or getting a hard candy that would fit your lifestyle. So you can think about some of those. I'll give you some time. And I know we're talking about you as an artist in this room, but there really is a larger impact when we think about the creative community and the society with artists in it. So this is a statistic from the American Addiction Center, which says over the course of a year, between both illicit drug use and heavy alcohol consumption, total substance use disorders were reported at 12.9 for the industry, a third highest of all industries included within the study. Now, artists obviously make up a huge amount of our workforce and society. And there's a lot of different artists and people in the entertainment industry that are included in these statistics. That is kind of staggering to think that it is in the third highest of industry as a whole. But maybe you don't want to hear it from a bunch of jargon and statistics, and you want to hear it from an artist specifically. So this is a quote from Andy Warhol. He says, "When people are ready to, they change. They never do it before then, and sometimes they die before they can get around to it. You can't make them change if they don't want to, just like when they don't want to, you can't stop them." Just a few more words, obviously, that's some of his iconic Marilyn Monroe pictures included on the slide, and really shows that impact of it starts with you, right? It starts inside yourself to say, I'm done with this, I don't need this, this doesn't really help me, it's kind of distracting and not helping me achieve my goals. It's just making me think I'm feeling better and then not actually feeling very much better at all. So obviously these prompts might be a little heavy. It is a heavy subject because there's obviously so much impact and so much at stake that when people stay in negative mind spaces, we see where that goes long term. But we don't want you to just get this information and then be depressed about it and not have something to do. So I do have some suggestions that we'll go through in the next couple slides. The first suggestion that I have, there's three main suggestions. The first one would be use this tool that I'm going to show you to figure out where your craft is going. And like I said in the beginning, your craft might be very different and very varied based on who you are and what you consider to be your art or your craft. So when you think about this and you're doing this activity, just keep that in mind of when I say craft, it's whatever your passion is, it's whatever the thing is that you create that brings you the most joy and makes your soul sing. So we're going to help you make sure that you're on the right direction, you're on the right path, and then you can incorporate some of these easy check-ins to help you reach your goals. The third one's real quick and easy. Write it down. Okay, we'll get to that, but let's get started. This exercise, again, if you didn't already scan it with the QR code is right here to get to these slides, so you'll be able to click on that and follow along, because there's a lot of small text on this slide. But this is an activity where you can plot some of the tasks and the activities that you do related to your craft. And again, if that's like a marketing calendar, that might be items in your project management tool. If you're thinking about being a pottery wizard with ceramics, there may be all of the different steps of production and how you seal and finalize a piece. But basically there's four main boxes. And on your piece of paper in your notes app, however you're keeping track of this, you can write down some of the notes in these four boxes. Start up at the top left corner with what you want to do. These are things you can tell the little person is jumping for joy. These are things that you are so drawn to that you would jump at the chance to do it. This is usually what we think of as hobbies, our pastimes, or your vices, passions. It should feel fun, there's joy, you're carefree, and it's usually what you do when you get to let loose or treat yourself. The next box you're going to fill in is the one right next to it, the things that you need to do. When we think about those, they're obligations, but they're soft obligations. They're kind of nagging, they're a little annoying. They feel kind of non-essential, like taking out the trash, cooking, or folding laundry. They're things that you know you kind of have to do, but there doesn't seem to be a giant threat if you don't get them done. Which leads us to that bottom left corner, that have to do box. This is where they're obligations, but they're hard obligations. This is something that you really can't avoid. It feels urgent or threatening, and this could be taxes, bills, or diarrhea. Things you really can't avoid and seem pretty urgent that you need to deal with. But the last box, things that you get to do. These are things that are opportunities. You feel excited or they feel exclusive, and it gives you maybe a little bit of butterflies or anticipation to be excited about it. And at the end of the day, this is where the gratitude lives, is when you start to, when you really stop saying all those other words of want to do, need to do, have to do, and everything actually becomes get to do. And that's where, honestly, sobriety has driven me to that point of gratitude and gratification at the bottom, where, okay, you might not always be like, yes, I get to take out the trash, but it's a perfect example. When I was getting ready for this presentation this morning, my boyfriend was already off and had his day, so he wasn't home, and the trash needed to be taken out. And it might have felt like an obligation to me because he wasn't there and it was stuffed, but I could have left it. I could have left it for him and then left it for him to have to do later. But I knew that if I get to do this, then what I'm really getting to do is surprise him with an act of service, right? That I take out the trash, which might feel like a chore, can be in one of those other boxes. But the outcome is that I get to surprise my partner with a little act of service. And it didn't take much time out of my day. I wasn't late for this or anything like that. And it's just one of those changes in paradigms that helps you feel more gratitude for every opportunity you have. After you've identified all these things, it's important to take the time to check in with yourself. What makes sense for you in a time frame once you've decided this, that you're going to come back later and check back in to make sure that you're holding yourself accountable. Can you be held accountable weekly? Should you review these goals on a more monthly basis where you look back and say, here are all my accomplishments over the last lunar cycle? You can definitely tie it in with those calendars. But find a rhythm that fits your lifestyle. Don't make yourself do daily check-ins or journal every morning if it's just going to burn you out and it's not going to help you. If you do like that amount of routine and ritual that you would prefer to start every morning with journaling or intention, let that be your rhythm. But if you are way too busy and it would add more stress to your life to do daily, make it weekly, make it monthly. As long as you're coming back, you'll realize how easy it is to layer these goals on top of each other. And if you notice in the picture, there are two people. So if you share your goals with others, it usually helps you be held more accountable because you put it out into the world. Which brings us to that third suggestion. Write it down. I gave you the paper, you have your notes app, however you want to take this. Just make sure that you actually either type it in or write it down physically on paper, because it's really going to reinforce it. So it may feel trivial, but just thinking it is not enough. When you put your goals and beliefs into writing, it helps. So take a few minutes now and just jot down something that you are proud of. It can be personal, it can be professional, or it can be creative. Just something that you, when you think about whether it's an experience or an outcome or result that you got, so what's something that you're proud of? And with that, I just wanted to thank you so much for welcoming me into this beautiful space at the Spiral Circle Bookstore, listening to this presentation, and maybe learning a little bit more about yourselves. But the rest of the time, I'll be happy to hang out here, answer any questions that you have. And if you want to have a bit of a more private discussion that you don't want to do here in front of everyone, you can feel free to email me at hi@kaluohs.com.